Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slam of Wrestling. Myself Supreet, and this is the AEW Dynamite review for October 21st, 2020. And I'm joined by Abhishek Aneja, aka Abby Maniac. What's up, Abby?
I'm absolutely great. How about you? How are you?
I'm doing good as well.
How did you find today's show of AEW Dynamite?
It was your typical Dynamite. It was a good show. Hour one was great. Hour two was little flat, except the Jericho MJF segment. What did you think about this week's Dynamite?
I I have an opinion regarding this whole show. That is that I enjoyed the whole show. There was never you can say a down point. It was a great show. I really enjoyed it and I was thoroughly entertained by whatever there was. And there were a little bit you can say points that were you can say illogical. That was how did the bunny came about just out of nowhere back where she was initially. So those points irk a little bit, but nonetheless overall if you take a holistic view of the whole show, it was a great show, really enjoyable.
So we had the first round matches for the AEW World Championship tournament. Um, we had a four-way to decide the number one contenders for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, and also we had late dinner debonair featuring Chris Jericho and MJF, and so much more. But before that, if you are new to this channel, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for all notifications. We here in Slam Up Wrestling cover all pro wrestling related stuff, including reviews for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW Dynamite, and New Japan as well. So we start with Wardlow versus Jungle Boy. This is one of those first round matches for the number one contender. Sorry, to decide the number one contender for the World Championship. Um, yeah, so this went 8 minutes. Wardlow showed off his power early on. Jungle Boy on the offense trying to knock down Wardlow. Jungle Boy sends Wardlow to the outside. Jungle Boy with a dive, Wardlow catches him. Jungle Boy somehow escapes and was on the apron. He went for a head scissors. Wardlow catches him again and power bombs him on the ring post. Wardlow in control, dominating Jungle Boy. Wardlow with a gut wrench power bomb for a 2 count. Wardlow set Jungle Boy up in the corner and was looking for a knee lift. Jungle Boy fights off and it's a knee of his own. Jungle Boy with the offense, hits a missile drop kick. Wardlow went outside to regroup. Jungle Boy with a tope. Back in, Jungle Boy hits a tornado DDT which only gets a 1 count. Jungle Boy to the top. Wardlow kips up and knocks down Jungle Boy. Wardlow on the second turnbuckle. Jungle Boy takes him down with a Hurricanrana and goes to the top, hits a diving knees, and this gets a 2 count. Wardlow to the outside, Jungle Boy went for a DDT. Wardlow catches him yet again and F10s him inside the ring. Wardlow with another F10, and that gets him the win. So for the time they were given for this match, it was really good. Wardlow was made to look like a threat. Jungle Boy looked good as well. What is your opinion on this match?
uh, I would say that match was great, and with regards to I agree with your statement that whatever time that was given to these both guys, uh, I would say that it was enough to make both of the guys look quote unquote strong. And the fact that giving Wardlow the victory is great so as to build his character forward. He has not gotten, you can say, enough important victories so as to get the fans invested in him or make him look like a threat in recent months, even. The last big match I would uh, recall that was against, I guess, Cody, and in that he lost. He was on the losing side. But nonetheless, the fact is that his presence and now him getting a victory is great for his character. And when the match started, when these both guys entered the ring, I was very, you can say, there was not a clear prediction in my head that who is going to win this match, because Jungle Boy could also win this match. He is a great competitor, he is talented, and the company has been pushing him forward to so as to get the fans invested, and he is a great talent. And Wardlow is a monster heel, and he should also be uh, pushed forward. So whoever gets the win, it is great. So Wardlow winning was a little bit, you can say, surprising, but also there is much of satisfaction or happiness to it that yes, they are doing something with regards to him, or as to build an tournament even, that you have to get the bracket straight. There has to be a heel in the next round. Even then, getting a victory for Wardlow is great, so as to build him forward and build him as a monster character moving forward. And with regards to the match, that what happened, the story between these two goes back because Wardlow is MJF's associate. Both Jungle Boy and Wardlow have crossed paths quite a bit during the MJF and Jungle Boy feud. And in their last encounter, which involved a tag team match in July, Luchasaurus pinned Wardlow. Wardlow is in an 8-man winning streak as of now, that was told by the commentators. And Wardlow's only loss, singles loss, has been against Cody, which I just mentioned, in the historic cage match, which was in Atlanta. And Wardlow has the strength and the power, while Jungle Boy has his speed and his athleticism. And there were a few spots that were, you can say, noteworthy. The release throw suplexes by Wardlow, which have been signature of him, looked effortless, effortless with Jungle Boy. And Wardlow dominated the majority of the action, but Jungle Boy showed his heart, his resilience by enduring enough offense from the monster. And in the second part of the match, Jungle Boy took control with his athletic prowess and using Wardlow's chasing and his weight advantage to his detriment. The counter of the F10 into a Frankensteiner from the top rope was indeed awesome by Jungle Boy. You have to agree on that. And in the end, as you just surmised, Wardlow got the victory after two consecutive F10s. So Wardlow advances via pinfall. Great. I have no qualms with regards to the match.
Can I say that Wardlow is like the top three or top two best big guy in AEW?
Probably, I would not even, you can say, refute that. He could very well be. His performances say for itself. The man can work.
So next we had a little recap from last week's ending that did not air on Dynamite. So Eddie Kingston was cutting a promo on John Moxley on how Moxley left him and went to WWE, etc. So following this, we had a video package where we see Moxley talking about Kingston, saying that he was happy that he was happy when Kingston got signed with AEW. He said he always cared about Kingston. Moxley said he's tired about hearing Kingston saying he never tapped, and he said he will torture Kingston and he will have nobody to blame but himself. So we are getting a I Quit match between the two at Full Gear. which suits perfectly for the story that is going with Kingston saying that he didn't quit, he didn't tap out. And about this video package, it was very well done, and it is great. And it was done especially to get invested in this world title match. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree. I see the even first of all the off-air promo of Eddie Kingston was absolutely great. Getting the fans invested and saying real shit, basically. Saying real shit and even using that language which is basically real. It doesn't look phony at all. So that gets you invested. And how this match got booked, that could be the reason why. That whatever the things that he said in that off-air promo, that could have manifested this match. In reality, I'm saying, not what the storyline says, but the fact that what happened, because when the show went off the air, you heard that JR was saying just stop, Eddie, just stop mumbling and things like that. But the fact is, Eddie took the ball and he went with it and he cut a promo. Even if the cameras were off, he didn't know, or even if he knew that if I do something here and if it works, if the universe works and it could manifest into a world title match. There was a story, it could have happened here or even now or even a few weeks from now, but in another scenario. But the fact that now get Kingston's promo from last week, then get this John Moxley pre-recorded promo, then add the stipulation of the I Quit match, and then you also have that stipulation with regards that he didn't tap when he faced John Moxley. So that makes it a whole great dish. That makes a whole great dish of getting the fans invested, of getting the fans in this feud that now, yes, we want this and this is great. This is great. This is great stuff. This is good shit. Really, this is good shit. So, full props to Eddie Kingston and good full props to Moxley for his promo also, that he also got the fans invested in Eddie Kingston getting a world title shot in an I Quit match for the next pay-per-view, that is Full Gear. It is great when real meets real. That's when the magic happens.
Kenny Omega versus Sunny Kiss. It should have been Joey Janela in this match, but he wasn't allowed to compete due to some precautions, mainly because he was part of those big GCW shows a few weeks back. So, do you know that there was any other extra controversy regarding those GCW shows?
Mm, I don't know. Was there any?
There were talks about it.
You want to share some?
No, I was asking you if you knew something.
No, 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 no.
Because the thing is that so this those 2 3 shows that GCW did, so they had a lot of fans over there, and I don't
Yes.
know if there was any positive cases from that shows.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I do know is that lot of those performers on those shows, regardless of which company they are, so they were told to just stay at home.
All right. Mm. Okay.
So so we get to this match. So Kenny Omega had a big entrance. Two ladies came out with broomsticks, while Justin Roberts listed off Omega's accomplishments, and he went full Rajdhani Express on that accomplishment list. So match begins. Both shake hands. Omega with a quick V trigger and the one winged angel, and that was it. This definitely was a right call, making it a quick squash match against someone like Sunny Kiss. And it also plays off Omega's recent confidence and his arrogance. And we also saw another tease at the cleaner gimmick. Opinion on this match.
Yes, I agree absolutely 100. Uh, this should have been exactly what it was. Basically, V trigger, one winged angel, and bam, one, two, three. And we still now are seeing that the cleaner, his heel persona, hasn't come to a full manifestation on the screen, but this was a great, you can say, step forward in that direction. And the match was what the fans wanted to see, basically. Even I wanted to see a vicious and relentless version of Kenny Omega, of what we have seen in the past in Japan, in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So now we are seeing that he is he was on a level far above. So the fact is, you are if you are competing against Sunny Case, that doesn't, you can say, requisite, or requisite could be a word, requisite 8 minute match here. So now you should take it as it was, and now your persona and your stuff should be like that. Just straightforward, go to work, and that's it. Basically, main event matches are your thing now. No bullshitting with enhancement talents. Basically,
So, so now I expect Omega versus Phoenix to be a killer match next week.
absolutely. Waiting for it. Just it would be a barn burner. Absolutely.
We had Tony Schiavone interviewing Orange Cassidy. Cassidy wasn't interested at all. Schiavone asked him how is he preparing for Cody. Cassidy said that they are going to Cincinnati. Schiavone reminds him that they are staying in Jacksonville next week. Cassidy said whatever. Speaking about Cody, so he was also being interviewed. He said that he's little surprised that they gave Cassidy a rematch so quickly. Cody talks about the extra 14 pounds he has gained recently. He said that he wants to move into the heavyweight territory. He said he will be taking it off this week and will be enjoying the rest of the show. We get Eddie Kingston. So he responded to John Moxley's comments from earlier on. He puts over both Penta and Phoenix and talks about their upcoming match. He also talks about Butcher and Blade and how they will be winning their match. And when they get to FTR, FTR will be calling their old bosses to have them back. He finally talks about Moxley. Kingston said he had to change to justify his means, and that's the reason he's getting a world title shot, and that too in an I Quit match. Kingston said he doesn't quit at anything, and he won't quit at Full Gear. So we get to Penta L0 versus yes, we get to Penta L0 M versus Ray Phoenix. But before that, what name do you prefer? Penta L0 M or Pentagon Junior?
I prefer Pentagon.
You prefer Pentagon.
Yes, Pentagon. I prefer that.
So
Maybe
how did this change of name come along?
uh, I don't know. Maybe probably that it could be because that he was I guess his name Pentagon Junior was because of his affiliation with AAA when he was signed with the promotion, and even when he was competing with competing in Impact Wrestling, he was known as Pentagon Junior. So maybe AEW wants uh, him to be recognized as maybe different or not with the same name. So it could be a bit different. So they want his name, his in his name which he used in the independent circuit. So to use that basically, and Pentagon now being also accentuating the fact that he is an independent contractor, so to speak. So it could be that, or maybe now he is not in uh, now not under contract with AAA anymore. It could be so he is using his independent uh, character name. It could be the reason.
So this went 14 minutes. Lockup exchanges from both men. Both men went for arm drags on each other. Penta went for the package fire driver. Phoenix escapes, went for a hook kick. Penta ducks and we get a stalemate. Both men went for several chops. Penta to the outside. Phoenix hits a cock back in. Penta trips Phoenix on the ropes. Penta is in full control now. So they once again go outside and once again exchanging chops. At one point, Penta accidentally chopped the ring post. Phoenix went after Penta. Phoenix was upside down on the apron. Penta with a super kick. Back in, Penta gets a two following a springboard sling blade. Both men on the top. Phoenix with the head scissors. Uh, Penta hit a awkward looking reverse DDT for a two count. Penta hit a insane looking pop up powerbomb for another two. Both men on the top. Phoenix springs up, hits a Spanish fly. Final parts of the match saw Penta with the arm breaker. Phoenix was favoring his arm. Penta was taking his time. This allowed Phoenix to get up and hit a destroyer, and that was it. Good match. They tried to have a more of a logical match instead of doing a spot fest type of match. The selling was not that good, but overall a good match. Could have been great if we had a packed crowd. What did you think about this match?
Hmm. I really enjoyed this match. Maybe I enjoyed maybe a little more than you, it seems. Uh, the fact that you just mentioned about the selling, yes, I should say that wherever I saw the selling aspect, most probably it was in the latter part of the match. I saw it was up to up to par, I could say, from the what I have observed from both of them from their run in an Impact and now here. So whatever I would be expecting, selling the fact that many wrestlers in today's day and age are not very well equipped or they do not care about selling. But the fact is, if they are doing that, it is great. They should be doing that, and that gets the fan invested. And with regards to their story, it was said both Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. or Penta L0M or Penta L0 only for our announcer. They started in the territories together, fighting one another, having great matches to get their name out there. And it was also told by the commentators that initially in their careers, they didn't reveal that to the promoters that they were brothers. They stood individually on their own paths. And basically, if you have observed Pentagon, he has the strength and technical and the explosive offense, whilst Phoenix has speed and agility, and also he can match with the explosive offense too. The winner of the bout would be facing Kenny Omega, and it is now Phoenix in the semis. The intervention, the some of the key you can say spots of the said match were that the intervention of Pentagon Junior of Phoenix walk on the rope looked just nasty, just nasty. And then Pentagon's middle rope sling blade, as you just mentioned was very innovative. Very innovative. I have not seen it used. It could be that other people are using uh, that also. And there was a spot when Phoenix head scissors from the top rope got him dizzy, or what he was playing possum. Howsoever, it was that he sold it very well. It looked very much real. Aubrey Edwards was checking up on him. Commentators were also playing up the fact that he may very well be dizzy or he may have a concussion. Same selling aspect. After that arm breaker spot, the pain, selling it, it looked real. And then Phoenix lured him playing possum with a satellite destroyer. And that was the exclamation point. A great entertaining match between two of the best we have in the industry. And there was also in the midst of the match a pop-up flip power bomb that also looked absolutely beautiful. So now next week it's gonna be a rematch of sorts between Phoenix and Omega. Last time when there was a high stakes bout between the two, it was for the AAA Mega Championship, which is their world championship. So it would be a barn burner, absolutely.
When did that last match happen?
I uh, do not remember the date.
Was it
Uh,
in was it in AEW or was it in AAA?
it was in AAA.
Okay. Um, uh, we get Colt Cabana alongside John Silver and Alex Reynolds. So all three of them were being interviewed. They were talking about how they are going to win their respective matches tonight and bring on all the gold in the dock order, including Brody Lee winning back the TNT Championship. John Cena brought up the TNT championship match next week, and saying that the entire dock order will be ringside for the match. And I think this is the reason why the TNT Championship match next week is a lumberjack match.
Bad call on the part of John Silver.
So we have Colt Cabana versus Hangman Page. This went 10 minutes. Lockup exchanges to begin. Page with a big rat, and he get some offense, including a big boot into the shooting star press for a 2 count. Cabana on the apron. Page takes him out with a clothesline. Back in, Page goes for the pin and gets a two. Cabana made a comeback following a elbow and a head scissors. Cabana tried to do his signature crawl under your opponent thing, but Page denied it and went for a roll up. Uh, Cabana back up, gets Page in the corner. Page catches the flying apple and it's a German. At one point, Page was looking for a big moonsault from the top, but Cabana pushed him as Page went crashing on the apron. Cabana followed it up with a splash on the floor. He tried to do the same inside the ring, but misses. Cabana denied the buckshot. Both men fighting on the top. Cabana went for the Chicago skyline, but Page escapes. Page misses the buckshot. Cabana went for the Superman pin, which gets a 2 count. Page takes a buckshot only to hit it, and that was it. The starting of this match was little meh, but the second half was good. The right guy won here. Thoughts on this match?
Yes, right guy won here. Now, very much expected that the finale could very well be Kenny Omega versus Adam Hangman Page. So, yes, the right man won, and this was not very much similar to what Kenny did in his match that Bam Bam done. This was a stretched match. This is different. Adam Page has a different character. He has a different outlook to the said match. So his wrestling aspect. So it was different, and the fact that it was a good match there. It wasn't bad or it was lazy. No, not at all. It was good. It was fine. And with regards to the overall rundown, Adam Page has been undefeated in singles action in 2020. Colt Cabana has been undefeated in singles action since joining the Dark Order. And the fact that with regards to the AEW World Championship, both Colt Cabana and Adam Hangman Page are unranked. So that was the positioning of both the competitors. And there was great back and forth action between the two competitors. Adam Page would be, of course, having Omega in the back of the mind somewhere. Well, alcohol sometimes lessens the pain and the voices in the head, but but they are still there. And with regards to Colt Cabana wants to impress the exalted one Brody Lee, who would be, of course, in a bad mood after losing the TNT Championship to the three-star bout machine and the bleeding nightmare Cody Rhodes, obviously. And just a simple fact out there: Adam Hangman Page has been in a singles opportunity for the world championship. He could have been the first ever champion, but he lost to Chris Jericho via pinfall. So, this is the time for him to finally get that prize that has eluded him since the start of All Elite Wrestling promotion. Adam Page won via the Buckshot Lariat via pinfall, and at the end, uh, maybe first you should run down that what happened post match, or then I could just get to the
Uh,
thoughts regards to that.
I think post match, the Dark Order members came out and helped Cabana up. That was it, I guess.
Yes, the fact is, what popped in my head with regards to this was that Adam Page was observing the Dark Order carrying their fallen comrade Colt Cabana to backstage. So maybe this is just a theory, but it could very well be that maybe Adam Hangman Page could see that how well Dark Order treats its members and finally give in and join them, because the thing that bugged him the most, as we saw on Being the Elite, I guess 2 weeks ago, was that the Young Bucks didn't flank him for one of his most important matches of his life some time ago. I guess I'm not wrong. Was
Yep.
it his match with against Chris Jericho?
Yep.
All right. So the fact is that when he sees such support being showered midst of the Dark Order, it could sway him because that's what he was looking for. And it seems that the person, I guess, who found Adam Hangman Page's mobile and texted Matt Jackson could very well be someone from the Dark Order or Brody Lee, if that hasn't been revealed yet on Being the Elite. Has it been revealed yet or not?
Uh, no, no, it has not been revealed yet.
So it could very well be. I'm just saying that it's a theory out there, and it uh, it fits somewhat.
That's what I call deep, deep storytelling.
if if they go that way, it could very well work. It could very well work, and they could get a pat on the back. I would not be there, but they would very well get.
So next we had Team Taz. They got a little interview time. Taz still he was still looking for a response from Will Hobbs, whether he wants to join Team Taz or not. He said Darby Allin getting a TNT championship burns his ass. He said Tony Khan had given him some explanation regarding that, saying if Ricky Starks had beaten Darby Allin, then Starks would have been the one getting a TNT title shot. Taz calls it bullshit and breaks up Starks' win-loss record. Starks on the mic, he sends a warning to Darby Allin and said something along the lines that he will bury him or something.
Hmm. They just basically addressed what we were discussing last week, that what would happen now because they have just inserted Darby Allin in the TNT title picture. So what about Will Hobbs? What about Brian Cage? What about Ricky Starks? So they just addressed that, but they addressed that Allen gets a title shot because he defeated Starks some odd weeks ago. But there wasn't any stipulation when it was booked when it happened. So I, logically speaking, it doesn't you can say digest or board well, but whatever it is, we give it a pass, obviously, because that is their company and they are booking a huge bout for pay-per-view. So it is what it is. And now the Starks and Darby Allin feud is now on the back burner till the time the TNT Championship match gets gets done at Full Gear. Basically, that is what they basically said. So okay,
At least there was some explanation to this whole thing.
yes, yes.
And regarding Willows, do you think he joins Team Taz? Should he join Team Taz?
Uh, just like I said last week, I don't think that he should, because we have the villains. We need more baby faces now to fight them, to fight their threat. So you need people, you can say, to get the fans rooting behind them. So I I do not think that Will Hobbs should join this faction, Team Taz.
So from that we get to the actual main event of the show. Late late dinner debonair, Chris Jericho and MJF. Both men well dressed up for their dinner. Jericho was having some bubbly while MJF was having I think red wine. Both men started giving their orders. MJF orders a porterhouse steak that was well done. Jericho orders the same. MJF changes his order and wants his steak medium. Jericho wants the same. So this went on for a while until both men agreed to a rare type of steak. They then start talking. Jericho asks what they are doing here. He said MJF has been rude to everyone here. Jericho also announces that there will be a town hall meeting to decide whether MJF should join the inner circle or not. MJF says that they are the biggest stars in pro wrestling and both of them working together needs to happen. Jericho responds that the ratings ruler gimmick sucks and also has much of a chance of getting over as Orange Cassidy. Both men said in sync. Uh, so MJF said to Jericho, just picture them together, and we get a great musical number. Holy shit! So both men back to the table and they get their steak and they get a raw steak. Both men didn't like it and decided to send it back. That was it. Awesome segment, and I think one of the best segments that AEW has done this year. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yes, it was absolutely great. I really enjoyed that. It was basically sports, no sports, basically entertainment. You have
Good,
to
good
enjoy,
entertainment.
yes, full entertainment. Yes, it could irk the purist that why the hell MJF is being a fucking cartoon, that he is such a great in-ring worker, blah blah blah. But the fact is that you need such stuff for storytelling and to get the fans invested, basically. So it these things have to happen, and the two people who are great on the mic and off the cuff, they can do whatever they want, and the musical was hilarious. Uh, it was great, and they also announced next week town hall meeting, and they would finally, I guess, would choose that if MJF is joining them or not. So it is great, so that they are building towards next week, and then we get an entertainment segment out of that. It is just you can say a cherry on top. And now we are thinking that what would happen if he would join their faction, if he would not, if Sammy Guevara would get kicked out or not. There are many aspects to cover, so it is intriguing. But in their own way, they are telling their story. It is great. I have no qualms against that.
Speaking about Sammy Guevara, so they aired a little, I can say, video package regarding the thing that is going on between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. So they have announced that they will be facing each other in a elite deletion match, which has to be a I can say cinematic style match.
Hopefully, yes. I also think the same. Then you can, if any injury happens, so it would not get to the camera. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Like they even if you see that saw that clip that they aired, in the end you could have seen that there was a picture of Matt Hardy's house or Matt Hardy's compound that
Hmm.
he was burning. So
Hmm.
it has to be a cinematic style match. We can't have these two in a regular type of match, any hardcore type stipulation match. Just do a cinematic style match.
Yes, it is safe, and it is also a great way to, you can say, just end the feud. It is the end game match. Obviously, they have been doing that since Impact Wrestling. So whenever they do the deletion match, so it is obviously the mostly 9 times out of 10, it is the final match. So yes, now hopefully it would be done in a great way, how they want. It would be short and it would be great. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
We had Britt Baker in action. She was
No, no, no.
facing.
It is daughter Britt Baker, DMD.
Oh, acha. Le- It is Doctor Britt Baker. So she faced Kylie King.
No, it is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, who loves Eli Drake.
Huh?
Yes, you don't see that when she enters the, you can say, stage, how
Uh,
she does the DMD.
oh, oh. You are saying that Britt Baker is doing gimmick infringement.
Yes, and Eli Drake has also, you can say, mentioned it on Twitter once, or I guess twice, but not more than that. When she
Okay.
just started, she has just started doing that, I guess, after she has returned from injury. It hasn't been very long.
Okay. So let's come back to this match. This went 4 minutes. Both women with lockup exchanges. King did get some offense here and there, but Baker dominated mostly here. Baker on following a curb stop and the lockjaw for the win. It was a good showing for Baker, but I don't know what the direction is here. I think I believe they are trying to build her up as a challenger for Shida at Full Gear. I don't know.
Probably, but there there should have been some kind of announcement with regards to that, but we haven't heard anything close to that. Right now, what they are doing is that they have taken your suggestion of booking Dr. Britt Baker DMD in enhancement talent matches. You you fucking said that, if you remember.
Yes, I did.
Hmm. So now they are doing that exact same thing. It is you who is responsible for this,
So
not anyone
basically,
else.
so basically, you're saying that Tony Khan should pay me some royalties for that.
Yes, he should, or at least he should be a little, you can say, more gracious enough. He could send us some merchandise.
Uh,
Yes.
Back to this match. Back to
Uh,
this smoking slash match.
yes. The fact is that we the more vicious Dr. Britt Baker is now being showcased. She has, as you said in one of your previous reviews, and we have now observed that she has improved a tad in the ring after now returning from injury. No wasted movement whatsoever. Now she looks more focused and she is, I guess, better than ever. And it seems that now it is only her, you can say, her scale is now only going up, no way going down. So what's next? We have to see it. Is it the AW Women's Championship, or is it a feud against a credible opponent? We have to see what's next for Dr. Britt Baker, DMD.
So we get no, no. Before that, we had a video package for Darby Allen. So what happened was Darby Allen was in a body bag on top of his gate ramp, and he just rolled down and fell. Allen Allen said that he was fine and he'll be the next TNT champion. I just have to say why. Why?
Just same. Do not get this. Maybe even JR and Tony Schiavone would also be thinking the same thing on the commentary table when they aired this live. That why? That what the hell, basically? That, what is uh, getting accomplished by doing that? Just getting a few bruises? What? What basically? Nothing being accomplished. You have, I guess, he is running out of content with regards to his this black and white uh, pre-recorded promos. So you can cut down on that. But the fact is, you cannot do such shit on. I guess now they have uh, acknowledged our phrase international television. They said it today, international television. So great stuff. But the fact is, it looks shitty. And if a person from the masses saw that, he would just laugh out loud and say that, "What the fuck was that?" Basically, what the fuck and why the fuck was that? Is this a professional wrestler? Why the fuck and why is he doing this? Does it even accomplish something? He is a challenger to the TNT Championship on a pay-per-view next month. All right, and he's doing this. Why? I don't know why. He just had free time. He was not booked on TV, so I guess he wanted to just shoot a promo to send, a tape to send, so as to wow the crowd. So what? Just put yourself in a body bag and get your friend to just toss you. Fuck it. Why? Just basically, there is no credible explanation to that. There is none.
Like
Why
we
are you
get
ruining your character, man? Why are you ruining your character, Darby Allin? Please don't.
like we get his gimmick, but we don't need this much of an explanation.
Yes, exactly.
Shall we get to the main event?
Yes, a four-way tag for the number one contendership for the tag team championship for Full Gear. The champions are FTR.
We had Private Party, Butcher and Blade with the Bunny. We also had Young Bucks and Dark Order represented by Alex Reynolds and John Silver.
First of
So you
what the
gone?
fuck is the problem with Bunny? How the hell it came about? J- just just out of nowhere on AW Dark, you just paid them back.
There was
What?
no there
Yes,
was
yes.
no exact explanation regarding that.
No, there was none. But the only thing that aired on television with regards to that was that QT Marshall was just looking at Eddie Kingston, and there was Bunny Alley. She was in her black and white attire, which she wore when she was with the Butcher and the Blade. Eddie introduced her to the stage, and it was basically insinuating that she is now aligned with Butcher and the Blade. But what was the logic? Why was there no explanation? Why and how? You are doing anything for the sake of doing it. Why so lazy, man, with regards to your storytelling?
So regarding the match they had, uh, so I was burned out at this point, and I didn't even realize that this was the main event. It could be that we had a Britt Baker match, and they followed it up with this match. That could be the reason,
Mhm.
or else they should have put the dinner segment in the middle of both matches.
Probably. Mhm.
So where was I?
Tag team.
Okay, so the main highlights. So basically, I didn't like this match because it was everywhere, and the main highlights were I think John Silver literally running wild and hitting everyone inside. And another thing, did you notice that during that Nick Jackson hot tag, Alex Reynolds I think got concussed. Did you notice that?
No, I did not. But, he hit something. What happened? He kicked. From the kick, he got concussed.
No, no, I don't know what happened, but he was not able to stand properly.
Maybe he was selling. I don't know.
No, no, he was not selling actually. He was just like he was about to,
He was not there, huh?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And he was. If you saw that spot, then you could have caught that he was being attended by the doctor.
all right. I could watch it back, and I would see that. I didn't catch that.
Just see when Nick Jackson got the tag, and you will get my point. What was I talking about?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Um, so so the final parts of the match. So the Bucks were going for a Meltzer driver on Cassidy. So Quen pulled out Nick from the apron while Cassidy rolled up Matt. And this was the exact same spot we saw last year in the tag team tournament. But
Yes.
in this case, Matt reversed and had a roll up of his own to get the win. And that was it. So before we go through the post-match angle, what did you think about this match?
I would also agree with the fact that this match was everywhere. There wasn't any, we'll say, story, cohesiveness. There was basically nothing. That it was just going here and there, and there was not even a point that if you are hitting a high risk maneuver or any maneuver for that matter, you weren't giving enough time to let it breathe. Letting the move breathe with the audience, that also creates an impact. That yes, a big move happened, or basically like that. There wasn't any, you can say, anything like that. So it didn't gel. It didn't gel at all. And yes, biggest point, flurry of offense by John Silver just after the break was mind-boggling. All hail Johnny Hungray. And basically, it was not good. And why was it in the main event? Basically it was probably for the post-match angle. Post-match angle was a ton better than what happened in the match. The the in the start of the match, when it just started, the commentator, I guess Tony Schiavone, he plugged Young Bucks' book from the backyards to the big leagues. So one of the members of the FTR said that the cool thing is that the Young Bucks still wrestle like they are in the backyards. That just rolled. That just fucking rolled. And FTR were throughout the match, they were subtly a little bit here and there dissing at a few instances about the point of a flip offense instead of a good old jab to the face. It happened at one point with regards to Mark Quinn. Mark Quinn did a flip offense where he could have just punched in the face, and kind of loved it. Kind of makes you think, basically. And it was basically, as you said, chaotic action, generic before the break. And Bucks, after the break, were only concentrating at one point on breaking the falls. They weren't doing fucking nothing. They were, you can say, they were giving, just like Cody, they were giving the ring time to the other teams to showcase what they got in the main event of the show. They were giving them screen time, probably. And Nick Jackson at one point cleared off all the 4 points of the ring posts at this was at the, you can say, almost the last part of the match, so as to isolate the legal man, that was Isaiah Cassidy, with Matt Jackson to get the win inside. Good strategy, great. And at the end, they did a callback to their first encounter between Private Party and the Young Bucks, but there was a different outcome this time. Young Bucks pinned for the victory, and Bucks and FTR now are fighting at full gear for the title. Fans were salivating for this, and now they're getting it, basically.
So post-match, FTR came out to congratulate the Bucks with some beers, but the Bucks denied the beer as they are Christian as fuck. Um, from the back, someone swings a chair at Matt, was revealed to be Tully Blanchard. FTR attacked the Bucks, a double spike pile driver on Nick, chair wrapped around the leg of Matt as Wheeler from the top crushes Matt's leg. So there you go. That's the big story for this match. Matt Jackson's injured leg, and all that is left to do is we we can expect a classic tag team match at Full Gear.
Hmm. People also, you can say, make fun of the fact that working the leg is tag team wrestling for these guys. But the fact is that how they come about and tell the story, that is what makes the fan invested. So now we have to see that how it all comes about, how it goes full circle. Basically, now it is the start of, now it is only FTR and the Young Bucks now, and now they are gunning for the pay-per-view. And as you said, the focus is now Matt's leg, injured leg or injured ankle, whatever they got to sell. So now it would be, as you said, the focal point of the match. They would be attacking that, and we have to see that how they build up towards that match, how the promos are going to be, the segments are going to be, and they have to keep it entertaining and get the fans invested. And still the fans are invested till the pay-per-view, till November 7th for the United States and November 8th for us here in India. That would be the challenging aspect for this feud. Fans have been clamoring for this feud for years, and now they're finally getting that. Yes, it is a bad state with regards to not getting a full packed crowd, but the fact is now they are getting the match, they are getting a decent, or you can say it, a less than decent amount of fans there. So it is now on. So expect a great match, and probably an extended feud would be great, but they have to work it out that how is it going to be.
So hopefully, Matt Jackson should not be able to do a super kick for the next 3 4 weeks.
Hopefully, but you know as well as I do that how good are the Young Bucks with regards to selling their injuries.
If Matt Jackson can sell a back injury for 3 years, then a leg in,
Oh.
I think they can do a decent job selling a leg injury for 3 weeks. If Matt Jackson can sell a back injury for 3 years.
Okay. Okay.
So that was Dynamite.
Yes, that was Dynamite for 21st of October 2020.
So before we leave, where can these guys find you?
Guys, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Abimaniac, ABBYMANIAC, and I'm currently working for an independent wrestling promotion in India called Wrestle Square. You can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestle Square. I am working with them as an authority figure on screen and as a commentator. And you can also subscribe to their YouTube channel at Wrestle Square Pro Wrestling.
You can find Slam Up Wrestling on Twitter at SlamUpW, Instagram at SlamUp Wrestling. Our podcast and reviews are mainly audio based. And if you don't want your YouTube app running for that, then you can catch Slam Up Wrestling on Anchor and Spotify as well. This was the AEW Dynamite review, and see you guys next time.